Good evening, guys. Welcome to the vlog. So, in today's video, we are going to look at typography, and today I will show you the process that I follow when I create a typography document for any project. So, this is what the final document looks like, where we have all the font sizes that we are planning to use on that particular website or a project. So when we are creating a typography document, we normally create at least 8 to 10 different font sizes. Okay, and the reason why we do that is to create a proper visual hierarchy and also to make our website look more aesthetically pleasing. Okay, so what are these different font sizes that we use? So we have headings, which is H1 to H6, and then we have body, which consists of two fonts basically, body 1 and body 2. Okay, body 2 is smaller than body 1. For example, in this document I've got H1 to H6, and then I've got P1, P2. So P1 is usually around 16 pixels and P2 is around 14 pixels. Then other than P1 and P2, which are body font sizes, we have few more like caption and overline and helper text, but for now I've just used the font size for caption. So caption is something that you put below the image. For example, if you have got one big paragraph and then you have got one image, you don't want the user to go through entire paragraph, to get the idea or to understand what this picture is about. So normally we put a small caption under the image so that when the user is just going through the page, is just browsing what all things are there on that page, and if he sees some image, you can immediately get to know what that image is about. Alright, so that way, I'm sorry about the dog that is barking. We have different font sizes for different purpose. So H1 is basically, we normally have only one, or not normally, we always have only one H1 on one page. Okay, then after that we have, let's say, different sections. So for each section we will have a title. Alright, and for that we use H2. So every section will have one title, and that title will be H2. Now inside a section, if you have, let's say, few subsections, then all those subsections will have H3 font size. That way. So what we are basically doing is we are creating a proper visual hierarchy on our document so that it's easier for the user to go through that entire document very quickly and see if the document has the information that he's looking for. Alright, if we don't create a proper visual hierarchy, it's going to be very difficult for the user to scan what is there on the page and to find out if that page really has the information that he needs. So by creating a proper structure, by creating a proper hierarchy, we are helping the user to quickly get the information that he wants. Okay, so normally people think typography is just for making your website aesthetically pleasing. Yes, it is one of the main reasons, but usability comes first. Okay, if your website is not usable, then no matter how good it looks, it's useless, right? So that's why we first focus on the usability whenever we create any project, and after that we move on to improving it aesthetic aesthetically, right? Okay, now how do we come up with all these different font sizes, right? So we actually, what we do is we select one base font size. So let's say we use P1. So this is P1, this is 16 pixels, and then we multiply that P1 tag with some factor called as scale factor. Okay, so it's just a number that we use to scale, to multiply our base font size and get a font size that's one above it and one below it. For example, if I multiply this font size by 1.125, I'll get this font size. Then if I multiply this font size by 1.125, I will get this font size that way. So we have one scaling factor that we use to generate all these different font sizes. So that way we have a consistency, right? And also we can be sure that there is enough difference in font size between two adjacent font size so that they're not nearly the same. Alright, otherwise it would end up confusing the user if our H2 and H3, or let's say H3 and H4, looks very similar. So we need to have enough difference in font size between two adjacent font sizes. Alright, so that's one thing. So we actually have a pretty good website for that, which I almost every time use. Okay, I depend on this website heavily. This website is called typescale.com. Okay, so what this page is, I'll explain you what this page is about. So we have an option to set a base size over here. So I have kept the base size as 16 pixels, which I normally use. You can even use 18 pixels. For example, sites that are very content heavy have a bigger base size. Okay, so it depends, but normally 16 pixels is okay. Alright, then after that you choose the scaling factor that you want to multiply this base size by. So we have these scaling factors by default. You can choose whichever one you like depending upon how big you want your H1 to be and how much difference you want between your font sizes. For example, if we use 1.2, it will look like this. If I, let's say, 1 to 1.33, it will look like this. Right, so it totally depends on how big you want your H1 to be and how much difference you want between these font sizes. So normally I choose 1.2 or 1.25. For the purpose of this tutorial, I have chosen 1.25. Alright, or I think it's 1.125, I'm not sure, but yeah, this is how we choose a scaling factor, and then we come up with all these different font sizes. Now also we have this option to select the Google font from right here. Okay, so if you select overpass, so you can select whatever font size you want from over here, and then you can also choose font weight if you want. For example, if you want to see how your headings will look, you can choose a font weight, I'm sorry, of 600, and you can immediately see how your headings will look if you use a font weight of 600. So this is a very nice website to get all these font sizes so that you can see how it will look on a smaller scale and how it will look when you have something that's large. So this is the process that I follow. I normally go to Google Fonts first, and then I select a font. For example, if we choose Roberto, over here we can see how it looks for different font weight, but we don't know how it is going to look for different font size, right? We can of course reduce the font size from here and see how it looks, but using this website makes it easier for me to see all my different font sizes in one screen, and it makes it easier for me to decide if I want to choose this font or not. Alright, so whenever you are creating a typography document or working on selecting the font size that you want for your brand, I'll suggest you definitely visit this website and see how it will look. Alright, okay. So the font family that I have used in this document is Gilda for headings, and for body, that is P1, P2 caption, I have used a font called Montserrat. Now you can use one font if you want for everything. Okay, you can use just one font on your entire website and it's perfectly fine. But sometimes people like to use two fonts. So when you're trying to use two fonts on your website, it's always important to consider how you're going to pair your main font. For example, now this is the concept of font pairing, and I'm not going to cover about font pairing in this video. I'll just give you a small overview of what normally happens. So for example, basically we have to create a contrast, okay, so that user can tell which is H1, or it's like which is a heading and which is the body, okay. And for that, what we do is, for creating that contrast, we use, let's say, serif font for headings, and then we use sans serif for the body. Alright, so that is one way. If you want, you can even use a combination. You can have a bigger font weight for your headings. For example, over here in this example, what I've done is, of course, I've got two different font sizes, but for headings, I've chosen to keep my headings bold. Okay, so this creates even more contrast. So that is how we select. So if you go to Google Fonts, over here you have different categories. So you can choose, let's say, serif. Alright, so you can select one serif font. Alright, let's say this one or this one, whichever you like. You can use this for headings, and then for the body you can use sans serif like Roberto. Alright, so always whenever you are doing font pairings, try to create a document with some content in it, and then use that font pair and see how that document is looking before you finalize your font pair. Okay, so I've got one sample document for you guys. Okay, so this is one sample document. Okay, so this could be like a travel blog or something. The content is a dummy content that I generated from an automatic content generating website. Okay, so this is the content, and I've just used the different headings over here just to see how it will look. Alright, so this way you can check your typography. Okay, so this is H1, this is H2, this is H3, this is again H3, then this is H2, H3 and H3. So we have two sections. Alright, this is one section, and then this is another section. So this is the section heading, and this one is another section heading, and this is H1. So that way we have created a proper structure for this page. But now, even though we have created a structure, we can make it more easy to scan. Okay, we can make it more beautiful, and the way we do that is by using spacing. Alright, now even though we have created a proper hierarchy for this document, it's actually a little content heavy. Yeah, so there are too many headings on one page, and it's little overwhelming for the user. So as a designer, it's our job to create a hierarchy, to prioritize this stuff, and to make it easier for the user to process what is there in front of him. So what we do is we add spacing, and we fix that, and we fix these things. Okay, so I've got one more document, so this is another one. So over here I've just added a little bit more space than this one, just to show you what happens when you take the power of different font sizes and the power of spacing. So when you combine these two things, you can make a very nice looking website. Right, now say over here and over here. So immediately you can see that this H1 tag stands out. Alright, compare this to this. Yeah, so a user might get overwhelmed, and he might get confused, like there's too many things, what do I read first? Yeah, so it's our responsibility to direct the user's attention where we want and control the flow. So this one stands out, and immediately the user can see that this page is about Admirable Beth Norris, right? And then we have this section. Right, this is the section. You can say this is H2, this is H3, and then after this section ends, we again have this space, right, which will tell the user that one section has ended and this is the another section. Alright, now it might be a bit too much for you if you're a beginner, but if you're just getting started with typography, I would always suggest you that you start with adding a little bit extra space to whatever that you're trying to create. Okay, in fact, you can add a lot of space and then try to reduce the spacing till you feel like it's perfect. That is the way I normally do. So it's always nice to have a little bit extra space, it's called the breathing space, so that all these things we can clearly separate from one another, and the user can look at these chunks, and if he's interested he can read more about it, or he can just skip it and move ahead. Alright guys, so that's all for today's video. I hope you liked it, and let me know if you have any questions about this, and do give it a try. And that's all for today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.